Time now for business. Let's say hello to Kate Moody.
Hi, Francois.
Another sign of just how globalized a world it is. What's this I hear about a shortage of semiconductor chips bringing auto assembly lines to a halt?
Well, it's something we've been talking about for at least the last year. The pandemic really thrust into the spotlight just how important and how difficult it is to piece together the supply chain for car makers. This is now a global shortage that's affecting manufacturers around the world that are already struggling to revamp their business after that initial shock of the pandemic and lockdowns. French producer Renault and Stellantis, which is the new PSA Fiat Chrysler Group, have said some of their European factories are being forced to slam on the brakes this week. General Motors, Ford, Honda, and Volkswagen among those who've also announced similar moves in recent weeks. Semiconductors are an increasingly important part of vehicles, used in everything from smart features like parking cameras and entertainment systems to brake sensors. But there are a limited number of the chip makers. The Korean giant Samsung and Taiwan's TSMC are the market leaders, and analysts say they're struggling to meet growing demand.
La production de véhicules automobiles a fortement baissé au début du premier confinement parce que les concessions étaient fermées, donc il y avait moins de voitures à vendre et donc moins à construire aussi. Et du coup, les fabricants de semi-conducteurs, ils ont repriorisé la production vers l'électroménager, vers les serveurs pour la 5G et les services informatiques, vers les consoles de jeux vidéo aussi.
Battling the coronavirus pandemic and an economy on the brink, Lebanon is now also facing a shortage of medical supplies and over-the-counter drugs. From aspirin and antibiotics to baby formula and vitamins, pharmacists say they simply don't have enough supplies to meet growing demand. Luke Schrago reports.
In Lebanon's pharmacies, people are taking whatever they can find, but for many, it's already too late.
ما لقيت شيء، لا في إذا شامبو بطلنا نلاقي، إذا شامبو ما نتحمم فيهم ما لقينا. غير الأدوية، كمان سألنا عن أدويتين كمان ما لقينا، مثل شوفوا سوق سوداء صارت البلد.
With the coronavirus pandemic still wreaking havoc on an economy already on life support, rumours the nation's unpopular caretaker government might be ending subsidies for medicines fed into a wave of panic buying. The black market is flourishing, with prices even for basics skyrocketing, as pharmacists do what they can to preserve limited stocks.
بيعطونا بالشهر من دواء معين لنقول 300 علبة، ممنوع تاخذ أكثر، بنبيع اليوم بس 10 حتى نقدر نضاين لكل الشهر بهالكمية اللي عنا إياها، لأنه إذا خلصوا 300 إذا حطيتهم كلهم على الرف بيومين أو 3 يمكن يروحوا.
Lebanon's health ministry's already ordered pharmacies to sell certain medicines on prescription only, but the problem goes deeper still, particularly to the central bank, which has failed to keep up payments to foreign drug manufacturers.
عندنا تأخير كتير بالتحويلات مما بيؤدي على أنه المصنع برا إذا ما وصلوا له بصرياته على وقتهم على استحقاقهم ما بقى بيسلم لا توصل له استحقاقاته وبالتالي بيأخر الشحنة إلى لبنان.
Local authorities say they've secured 6 million doses of COVID vaccine, which should arrive by the middle of the month. However, that's still only enough to dose half the population, leaving yet another looming health issue of the potential for the virus to mutate if the country can't get its people vaccinated quickly enough.
Oil prices have hit their highest levels in a year, returning to their pre-pandemic heights. A barrel of US WTI trading over $58. Remember, it briefly turned negative last year when it became more expensive to store than to buy. International Brent crude topping $60 per barrel for the first time since January of 2020. Now take a look at how Brent has fared over the last year. It crashed in April as manufacturing and travel ground to a halt around the world. Prices have risen over 50% since November, although global demand has yet to fully recover. Many producers, led by OPEC and Russia, have slowed their pumps in an effort to reduce supplies on an overflooded market. Analysts say they'll likely hold to that lower pace until the pandemic is brought under control. Let's check in on the rest of the day's trading action now. The major European indices closed higher, with stocks in Milan outperforming after the former European Central Bank President Mario Draghi opened a final round of talks aimed at forming a new Italian government. Wall Street's also trending higher. We're seeing gains of around half a percentage point across the board there. Investors looking for signs that the U.S. Congress will pass a hefty coronavirus stimulus package, even without bipartisan support. Over the weekend, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she believed the American labor market could recover to its pre-pandemic strength by the end of next year if most of Joe Biden's proposals are enacted. The price of Bitcoin has skyrocketed to a new high, near $45,000, after a boost from electric car maker Tesla. The company said it had invested $1.5 billion in the cryptocurrency and planned to begin accepting it as a form of payment. Founder and CEO Elon Musk has repeatedly endorsed Bitcoin and other digital currencies on social media in recent weeks as its value has soared. But regulators and financial experts warn that it does remain volatile and highly risky. This weekend, ECB Chief Christine Lagarde repeated her position that it should be considered a speculative asset rather than a currency in and of itself. But of course, Francois, this is a trend that's slowly starting to change. If companies like Tesla start accepting it, PayPal is starting to accept it as a form of currency.